So, looked like we had a little hiccup with disconnect issues. Went back over the video and it basically cut off the first half of the video. So, we're going to go back over this stuff real quick and just do it over again. No problems. Like we've said before, these are just these little tutorial things talking about camps and your characters. This is where your characters are going to be, stuff like that. Anyway, we're going to create a character, and again, this is defaulting to the Ashara realm, which we don't want to use the Ashara realm because that's just one of those that it wants new players to join. And what we want is a high population server, economic reasons as well as being able to find people to play with at all times. If you're one of those night owls that likes to play at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's a lot easier to find people if you're on the higher population servers. I know that with the integration of servers that doesn't matter near as much, but I have noticed that it is a lot better on these higher population servers when it comes to things like world events and with the economy on the Octomouse. So again, we're just going to go with Agrimar because it's at the top of the list. Most of my guys are on Area 52. That's where I normally play at. I've been doing it for heck 15 years now, if not longer. So anyway, we're going to go with Agrimar. Gives us the warning about a full server. Yes, we're not worried about that. Going to be logging in, and then we're going to create a character, and it should take us straight into the character creation screen. Yeah, all right. And so what we were going over in the last video that got messed up is I wanted to go over some specifics about specializations. We call them the specs. We already talked about the roles. You've got tank, you got healer, you got DPS. You got your damage dealers, your healers, and the guys who are keeping everybody else alive by keeping all the enemies on them. That's the tank. Healers, he's the one that's keeping everybody alive through taking care of the damage that they do take. When that rogue is over there deciding that he's going to tank the boss for a little while, sometimes that happens. He'll hit his defensives, and the priest will just have to keep him up for a minute, hope that the warrior can come in and taunt the boss off of him and get us back into working, order. But basically, what it comes down to, though, is that you've got those three roles, but not everybody can do all three roles. If you notice on the warrior, all they can do is tank or melee damage. So they've only got two roles that they can do, but everybody has three specializations, with the exception of Druid. Druid has four, and that's just been because of an evolution of how the game has progressed. Druids, when they first came out, they had their tanking and their melee DPS spec was both feral, and that was their bear and cat form. Then they had Balance, which was their Moonkin form, and that was their ranged DPS form. And then they had Restoration, which was their Treant form. So that was their healing spec. Uh, they later, Blizzard later decided to split the Feral spec into a separate spec altogether, to where now, if you want to be a bear tank, you can specialize specifically in bear tanking, and they call it the Guardian spec. So Druid is the exception to the rule. They are the ones that have four specs, but everybody else, they have three specs. In fact, is Evoker? No, Evoker does have. Somebody's only got two specs. Oh, it's Demon Hunter. Okay, so Demon Hunter only has two specs, and they have tank or melee. DPS or tanking, and that's going to be your Vengeance and your Havoc. Your VDH, your Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be your highly mobile, um, dodgy type of tank. We can't even play a Demon Hunter on a new install because we haven't reached level 10 ever. This is a fresh install, so we're playing this as if we're a brand new player. So what we want to look at is what the specs are, who has what specs, and what spec do we want to play, right? And really, it comes down to what role do we want to play. Do we want to play DPS, healing, or tanking? As discussed in the last video, we want to go with a class that has the ability to tank. So that rules out quite a few of these. Hunters, mages, rogues, and warlocks, those are pure DPS classes. They don't do anything but deal damage. Like I said, they do still have three specializations. So, like Warlock, they have their demonology spec, where it's all about their demon aspect. Uh, and the way they handle their what do you call them? Their summoned creatures. Then they have affliction and they have destruction. Destruction is pure, like just fire and chaos and throwing out damage as they can. Whereas affliction is more about um, poisons, curses, and afflictions. That affliction spec. Rogues have three as well. They've got combat, which is now called outlaw. Um, they've got subtlety, and they've got assassination. Um, the way that they do their three specs, I love how they have been able to make the rogue class into three distinct styles. Same thing with the hunter. The hunter, on the other hand, isn't limited to just pure ranged or pure melee. They could be ranged or melee depending on your spec. You have marksmanship, which is a pure ranged, relying on just your player's damage, really not relying on a pet at all. You can still call in a pet. There's some specialization choices you can make in your talent tree, which can allow you to keep a pet or to play without a pet, and you just get abilities where you call in a short time pet that will create an effect for you. Um, that's marksmanship, and then there's Beastmaster, where it's you're focusing on your pets, and you'll actually have two pets out, and sometimes even more. When you have some things happen and trigger certain abilities, and you'll have a whole bunch of pets out, and you'll have a better pets, stronger pets. You can do things more with your pets. So Beastmasters are all about their pets. Then you have survival, which is their melee damaging specialization, and that's all about um, like working together with your pets, like a pack of wolves, to take down a bear. You're running in there, you're throwing down traps, you're hitting them with your pole arm, while your pets are coming in from the sides and getting these, kill commands from your hunter. He's given the command to kill, and your hunters or your pets will jump in and they'll do your damage. And so it's a mixture between the pets and the hunter, and it's melee. That a lot of people really like that spec. I've tried it. I'm not as good at it. It's just a different play style that to me didn't seem as intuitive. I did play it. I did like it. I wasn't topping any damage meters, but it is definitely playable by anybody that wants to try it out. And you can get good at it. Everybody can get into this game and find their niche of where they're going to fit in. Um, with that being said, um, we did mention we want to try a class because this is a guide for beginners or people who are just coming back to the game after a long hiatus. We want to go with a class that has a tanking specialization, and let's go here. That's a good one to show. Okay, so we've got Paladin, Monk, and Druid. Now, the reason we're not going with Warrior is because they don't have a healing specialization. Whereas druids, monks, and paladins can do all three things. The reason I want to choose one of these three is that when you get to the top level and you're deciding that maybe you don't like being a tank or you don't like being a damage dealer, you want to try out healing, you have that option with these classes without having to fully level something up again. And while leveling is much, much faster now than it was before, that was why I chose a druid back when I first started playing. My first character was a mage that I was on Alliance. I didn't level him up very far, but then I got a rogue and I was loving my rogue, got him up to level 44, and then Burning Crusade came out. And so I was trying out everything because I didn't know what I wanted to play. And that's why we're going over these things in this video is I didn't know what I wanted to play. And I remember that just inability to decide without experiencing it. And I got every class up to at least level 20 or 25 before I'd move on to something else. And my friends and family that I was playing with were constantly yelling at me, just pick something and come on. We want you to get into the end game. This is where the game really starts. Come on, man. We're doing this, we're doing that. We want you to play in Naxxramas. This stuff just came out. Come play with us. And I just couldn't decide what I wanted to play. And then Burning Crusade came out, and I tried. That was when I got to Druid, and I tried Druid, and I loved it simply because it was so flexible. I leveled up as Feral, which I was doing it as a DPS Feral. I was a cat running around playing like I was a rogue. And then when I got to the top level, I switched to Bear form and the tanking specialization of Feral. I was taking those points that were more geared towards tanking, and I played as a bear tank for a long time throughout Burning Crusade. And I could switch to cat form very easily since I was familiar with it. And I could be a DPSer if somebody in our raid wanted to try tanking or something. Or if we needed a healer, I could jump in as restoration, and I learned to heal as a restoration druid. And I wasn't bad as a healer back then. Now healing is a whole lot different. There's a whole lot more to it. People call it button bloat nowadays. I wouldn't say that there's so much button bloat as there's ability bloat. There are so many more abilities now, and they interact with so many other things. You could have a single spell that has 20 different interactions with other spells, and it can get very confusing for newer players. That is why I think for this guide, I'm gonna go with Paladin. I'll get more into that here in a second, but like we've got the choices of monk, druid, or paladin when it comes to having that flexibility of what we want to play as when we reach that top level. If we want to play as a tank, a healer, or as a DPS, it's going to come down to either the druid, the monk, or the paladin. Um, at first I was gonna go with Druid. I was for the this guide, I was gonna go with Druid because I am familiar with Druid. I'm not as familiar at it as it is in its current state, and I was hoping that maybe I could learn some more by playing through it in this guide as well. But one of the things that I noticed looking at a lot of statistics online was that even though the paladins were not the top ranked at any one ability or specialization or role, they were still the number one class that was chosen. And I felt like since my audience here is going to mostly be, for at least for the purposes of this guide, going to be those newer players. And if newer players are tending towards paladin, then that's probably what I should go as. Now I do have a paladin. I have played it at top level. I have played it in the highest level content. Last season I was in mythic rating. I was doing plus 12 keys in season one of the War Within, as a paladin tank and as a retribution paladin. So I do have the ability to jump right into this and know what I'm doing. But what I'm going to try to make sure that I do is, as we level up, explain what it is to play as a new player and not get overwhelmed by the class or the play style, but teach you how to play the game. It's like I said in one of my intro videos. It's not just the how, It's the why. Why do you do things the way you do? Not you push this button because it does damage, but why do we push this specific one to do damage? And those are the things that I want to go over. I want to go over those interactions and things. All right, so for this guide, I'm thinking we should definitely go with the paladin. Um, Druid is, come to find out, one of the least played classes. So even though it's one that I love to play, Druids hold a special place in my heart. I'm gonna have to say no to the Druid. Um, I just want to make sure that I can reach the widest audience possible. Um, Druids and Paladins were able to be played from the very beginning of the game. Um, Monks came in a little later. I have played Monks. One of my healing classes is a Monk. I actually love playing it. It's the only healer class I like playing now is Monk. Um, Maybe we'll do some videos of that at some point. But if that's something you want to see, leave a comment down below, and maybe I'll throw together a couple of Mythic Plus runs with healing as a monk. It keeps me on my toes. I'll tell you that. It can be some of the easiest content to do, and I'm still sweating afterwards. Lots of fun. But for this guide, for the tutorial, we're going to go with Paladin. I think it's going to be the easiest one for newer players to learn how to play. It is considered one of the easiest classes to learn to play. Um, it does have that ability to be a tank, a DPS, or a healer. So when you get to top level and you decide you don't want to be a tank, you can go into Retribution and go into DPSing, and you're going to be competitive, not hard to learn. If you decide you want to try healing, um, paladin healers aren't the best healers. They're not the worst healers. They're very different play style. Their play style of healing is very interactive. Uh, I'm not good at it at all whatsoever. It might be one of those things we again try out at some point, just so y'all can see how much I suck at it. But like I said, we're going to go with Paladin. I'm going to stop the video here. And our next one, we're going to take a look at the races. We're going to see what races are available as a Paladin, and how we're going to choose which race we're going to play. So, with that, I will go ahead and stop it here. We'll check you guys on the next one.